The ending of Bleach, or more specifically, the ending of the first cour. Within the past 12 weeks, Mondays have gone from most individuals' least favorite day of the week to one we can all look forward to, and that's a testament to how amazing of an adaptation we've been blessed with. The 1000-Year Blood Wars anime has taken an incredible arc and brought to life this beautiful world we've anticipated to see on screen for far too long. The music, visuals, and added scenes have amplified the manga, and it shocked me by eliciting within me the same raw emotions I had when initially reading through the story. Most often when reading through a manga and then subsequently watching the anime usually doesn't hit as hard emotionally, but Bleach has taken that concept and thrown it right out the window. This may be an anime whose adaptation surpasses the manga, and my god, I am all here for it. The day after Christmas, we were treated with not just one, but two presents within the final 2 episodes of the first cour, and it ended exactly how we all thought it would, and that's on a banger. The conclusion of Everything But the Rain was breathtakingly beautiful. Masaki within just 2 short episodes cemented herself as one of the most impactful characters in the story, and her backstory enabled Ichigo to learn the roots of his heritage, and subsequently allowed Ichigo to understand himself. One of the most compelling aspects of this episode for me was Ishin's intoxication by Masaki. Despite their short encounter, she weighs on his mind, and it's clear that once he met her, his life would never be the same. Within life there exists people, a person, who just upon one impression can forever be immortalized within your mind, your memory, your soul. Whenever you meet a person like this, you're consumed and all logic and reason goes out the window. They become part of you. Ishin exemplifies this romantic nature of love, and it's an aspect of storytelling that I adore. Whether you've found this kind of love or you're still searching, hold out hope because it's out there. For a brief moment, I forgot we were discussing anime, but back to business. Shortly within the episode, we progress quickly due to Masaki's illness due to her being bitten by White. As Ryukin searches for a treatment for Masaki's sickness, Ishin arrives as well as her favorite shopkeeper within Kisuke Urahara. It's actually insane to think about how much of the story both him and Aizen dictate and set into motion. They're both co-authors of the events of Bleach, and moments like this are a continual reminder of this concept. I'm sure to Ishin, when encountering Urahara, he was extremely shocked due to Urahara being brandished as an exile of Soul Society and a criminal. It's like coming face to face with a legend you heard long ago. As Urahara catches everyone up to speed, he states that due to Masaki being both human and Quincy, the only way they can stop the holification is for an opposite force to exist. Otherwise, Masaki will deteriorate rapidly as her soul eventually will reach soul suicide. The opposite force. The only way to save Masaki is by Ishin giving up his life as a Shinigami and entering a Gigai and staying by Masaki's side all the days of his life. That by binding their souls together, her life would be saved. This request, which seems outlandish, a request to throw everything away Ishin has ever known, he answers unquestionably that he'll do it. I remember first reading this and feeling emotional at the utter commitment and lack of hesitation towards this woman he met just once prior. But in that meeting, he learned all he would ever need to make that decision. This woman was the sun to him, and he was caught in her orbit. Her light warmed his soul and made the decision to throw everything aside for the sake of her uneasy one. This episode shows everyone reading and watching exactly the kind of love we should aspire for, and goddamn, this is a beautiful moment. There's a brilliant scene in the rain as Ryukin instructs Katagiri to tell his mom that he is unqualified to protect the Quincy's. Ryukin, one of the last of his race, was helpless and only saved due to the help of a Shinigami, his race's mortal enemy. I'm sure he felt so much self-loathing and anger at this concept, and it adds so much depth to his character. Since the beginning of the story, Ishin and Ryukin have always been acquaintances of sorts, and witnessing their origin together will only add to the plot later on. Everything But the Rain continues on as we get to see the life Ishin and Masaki built together. Ishin was continually spun around by her love, and they lived a happy life. But unfortunately, this light is cut short. 9 years ago, Ashwulen took place where Yhwach reclaimed the Quincy powers from Masaki, making her unable to fight versus the Grand Fisher. In retrospect, this clears up so much because obviously power scaling wise, if Masaki is able to one-shot a Vasto Lord White, then the Grand Fisher should be an effortless fight. However, facing him as a human, obviously the outcome was inevitable. Most importantly though, from this revelation, Ichigo understands the circumstances of his mother's death, and he's able to free himself of the guilt and feelings of responsibility of her passing. For all these years he's carried the weight of her death, but now knowing the truth regarding it, these shackles are freed. With this knowledge, it also clears up a plot point I initially found strange when first reading, the fact that Ishin wasn't angry when he killed Grand Fisher. But it's because his anger was never towards the Hollow, it was and is towards the man known as Yhwach. The Ashwulen didn't just result in Masaki's death, but also Uryu's mother. Despite Uryu and Ichigo often having a tumultuous relationship, they're both bonded by tragedy of the same kind, and it isn't just Ichigo who will seek revenge versus Yhwach. My god, I can't wait to see Uryu's side and everything expounded upon even more. With his newfound knowledge, Ichigo knows everything he needed to know, and he departs from his house as we now set forth into my personal favorite chapter and episode of the series. The Blade is me. The culmination of everything in Bleach up until this point, the actualization of Ichigo Kurosaki. Ichigo in a place where he once failed just episodes ago, standing before a dark room of Asauchi, he must determine which is his. As he walks past all those he knows not to be his own, they begin to bow in the presence of him as if they accepted Ichigo now that he has accepted himself. This scene is one of the most beautiful of the series because it isn't just a moment where Ichigo finds his Asauchi. It's a moment where he comes face to face and stands together with White, the very inner demon he for so long wished away. White, who's been by his side all this time, has served as the protector that his mother did for his entire life. White and Masaki were inner-bound, and through Ichigo's birth he inherited this hollow that for all these years walked beside Masaki. Despite her passing, White carried on her will to protect her beloved son, and although his methods were clouded, his outcome was the same. White, dubbed White due to the nature of his soul, is pure-hearted despite his existence as a hollow, and it's shown through Masaki falling through the void of her own consciousness. She felt White's soul as a lonely and dark place, but not a place of evil that would elicit fear. White is an entity whose soul was interbound with the exact person who could help fix this void and lonely ether. This was within Masaki. It's such a beautiful notion that she lives on, although not in the physical world, and that her will was inherited by the most unlikely of entities. With Ichigo brought below the cliff, he alongside Namaya and his crew are surrounded by raging waters as Ichigo can now truly reforge his Zanpakuto, but it isn't without trial. Ichigo is forced to face the shock of his true Asauchi being White, and subsequently the mystery that has plagued the audience within the identity of Old Man Zangetsu. Ichigo, to face this concept once more, surges to his inner world, and the aesthetic with the strawberry-colored undertones, it was beautiful. Now standing face to face with the man he thought all this time to be Old Man Zangetsu, mysteries slowly begin to click. These thoughts that had plagued Ichigo, such as how he was able to recognize the enemy immediately when arriving to Soul Society, and how he knew where to find him instinctively. We learn Old Man Zangetsu is the Quincy powers residing in Ichigo, and he takes on the form and manifestation of Yhwach 1000 years ago. I remember when first reading this how shocked I was at this realization, but similarly to Ichigo, I was left with so many questions. Old Man Zangetsu for all this time seemed to be a rock for Ichigo, but he claims to not be an ally or an enemy. Instead, as we learn, Old Man Zangetsu, all he wanted all this time is for Ichigo to avoid conflict and pain, becoming a Shinigami, because he knew that one day if he did, that he within the real Yhwach would have to fight Ichigo. Old Man Zangetsu has always hated the rain, and he's done everything he can to ensure Ichigo's inner world isn't flooded, but now he stands before Ichigo to instruct him that all along the one to teach him everything about the blade, the one who saved him time and time again, hasn't been himself, but White. However, this isn't fully the truth. Old Man Zangetsu has helped Ichigo time and time again, at many times where his power wasn't enough. Ichigo's inner entity was not just one, but two actively seeking to protect him, and it's such a poignant notion. Both White and Old Man Zangetsu are connected directly to Masaki, the inner hollow, the Quincy. Both have always sought to protect Ichigo at all cost. A maternal protection. When first reading this months ago versus watching the anime's adaptation now, I'm a completely different person. In this time I've lost my mother who was my protector, my rock, and witnessing through this story exemplifying that although Ichigo's mother, that although my mother may be gone, that protection will never truly leave. And it makes scenes like this far more poignant and emotional for me as a reader and watcher. Old Man Zangetsu for all this time has suppressed Ichigo's Shinigami powers, but now upon Ichigo learning the truth of Zangetsu and himself, he relinquishes this hold on Ichigo's power. Throughout all this time, Ichigo has pushed forward in the face of despair, trials, and failures. Through his conviction, he made Old Man Zangetsu believe in his desires and aspirations, to let Ichigo choose to fight. Ichigo is no longer suppressed, no longer a son born into the darkness. With him pulling his blade from the fire, he pulls out his true Zanpakutos, both in the form of Old Man Zangetsu and White. It is Ichigo's actualization, the full acceptance of himself, the Shinigami, Quincy, hollow, and human elements of his being. He knows who Ichigo Kurosaki is. All this time throughout the story, Ichigo has asked for help from the two entities existing within him, but now he will pick up his blade and fight for himself. This point is fantastic, and it brought callbacks to Urahara's statements just episodes ago that Ichigo must choose to fight for himself. He can no longer exist for the purpose of others. He must forge his own path. With Ichigo now unshackled by his own mind, his own darkness, he is no longer limited. Ichigo, in choosing to fight for himself, in the process he'll protect everything and everyone he cherishes. Bleach ends its first cour on a high note, and I hope each of us can take away from this conclusion that true strength lies within the acceptance of ourselves, our faults, our sins, our loss. If you enjoy my content, please do consider dropping a subscription. We cover Bleach every week, so if you're a fan of the story, this is the right place for you. Most importantly though, let me know in the comment section below your favorite moment of this episode. This has been hiXtrah, and as always, be greedier, and I will catch you all next time.